It's time to review Ratchet and Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal, gross, for the PlayStation 2. Before I begin, I just want to say that this is a very long overdue requested review by Untitled. So, if you're watching this hen, here it is after about a year and a half. I'm sorry it took so long, and thanks for the request. Ratchet and Clank 3 is the third installment in the Ratchet and Clank series by Insomniac Games, and the final proper Ratchet and Clank game for the PS2, not counting that deadlock business anyways. Released in 2004 to much critical acclaim, Up Your Arsenal is widely considered by many to not only be the best Ratchet and Clank game in the original PS2 trilogy, but the best game in the series overall. A while back I reviewed this game's prequel Going Commando and gave it a rating of damn solid. But can Up Your Arsenal be just as good or even better than that? Well, let's lock and load, boys, because we're about to find out. Taking place a year after the events of Going Commando, our titular Lombax and tiny robot duo have returned to the Solana galaxy from the first game to find out that a crazy robotic scientist named Dr. Nefarious has declared genocidal war against all organic lifeforms, also referred to as squishies, and has enlisted the help of a powerful race known as Tyrannoids to destroy the squishies. And yes, in case you're wondering, the Tyrannoids are also organic. They just don't know the concept of irony, that's all. Getting recruited into the Galactic Army and put into an elite squad set up by everyone's favorite big chin hero. No, not him. There you go. Anyways, it's up to Ratchet and Clank to save the galaxy from the nefarious schemes of Dr. Nefarious. Just like the previous two entries in the series, Up Your Arsenal is a cross between a 3D platformer and a run-and-gun third-person shooter. You jump with the X button and can double jump again by pressing X while in the air. You attack enemies with Ratchet's Omni Wrench with square, use whatever weapon or gadget you have equipped by pressing or holding circle, and can switch weapons and gadgets by pressing triangle or holding it to access the quick select menu. Meanwhile, you can crouch with R1 and by holding L1, you go into a first person's perspective, making it easier to fire at enemies from far away. Like with Ratchet and Clank 2, when you kill enough enemies, your health and whatever weapon you have equipped with you will get an upgrade, where you get more hit points for health and all sorts of mods for your weapons, such as more ammo, the ability to lock on, stronger effects, and more. The overall objective of the game is to go to each of the many planets on offer and complete a variety of missions, such as finding a certain item or gadget, destroy an enemy base, collect information on Dr. Nefarious, and so on. In each planet there are many important items. Firstly, are the nuts and bolts, which can be found by killing enemies, destroying crates and random objects, and completing challenges. Once completed, you can use the bolts to buy new weapons, ammo, all new mods, gadgets, or items from certain characters, and even brand new armor. As well as the regular nuts and bolts, there are also golden bolts, which can be found in special areas but are only used to buy new costumes for Ratchet this time around. And like with the previous two games, you can also take control of Little Clank, who can jump and punch enemies with X and square respectively, but can also use little Gadgetron robots by accessing a small menu with triangle and giving the little robots a number of commands to perform. However, this time around you can also play as Captain Quark for the first time via his vidcomic series. In it, his gameplay is a 2.5D platformer along the lines of Mega Man, where you have to survive to the end of the level and get there as quickly as you can while collecting tons of little MacGuffins. I'm aware that a lot of people think that this is the best Ratchet and Clank game in the series, but even so, I can't let that stop me from pointing out that, well, there's a few problems with it. First of all, if you're more into the platforming aspects of the series as opposed to the chaotic gunfights, you're not going to enjoy this game as much as the first two. Whereas the first two had tons of platforming sections or multiple opportunities to use gadgets, there's very little of that here, or at least it's not as memorable as before. In fact, there are whole levels that have barely any platforming in them, meaning that all you have to go through is just the shooting parts, which some will enjoy since that's their favorite part of the series, but others won't enjoy as much for that same reason. What makes this worse is that it can make the game feel a bit repetitive. I suppose when you have a trilogy filled with tons of shooting and dodging, this is going to happen anyways, but when you take the decrease of platforming into account, it makes the game a lot more repetitive than it would normally be. Not that this is a bad thing, as I'll get to later on, but for those who've played through the first two games, there isn't much in the main gameplay you haven't already seen before. Something else I should mention is that while the overall difficulty isn't as frustratingly inconsistent as going commando, it can become a little overwhelming at times, with tons of enemies on screen firing shots that can sometimes take out half your health, and that's even when you've acquired armor to absorb about 2/3 of the damage. It gets particularly maddening during the final level. Things just go off the deep end here, where enemies take a lot of hits, even with fully upgraded weapons, and can deal tons of damage. And there is only one checkpoint in the entire level, which is at the beginning. Just let me put it simply. If you haven't bought the PDA and maxed out your health meter and at least 5 different weapons, you're going to be in a world of hell, fellow viewer. Despite occasional difficulty issues and repetitive gameplay, Up Your Arsenal is, at its core, a good, enjoyable game with quite a number of fun qualities. First of all, like with the first two games, the graphics are still as great as always. The environments are colorful and well done, there isn't any frame rate issues despite the insane action that gets on the screen a lot, and the animation in the cutscenes is still as kick-ass as it was 2 games ago. Something I never really talk about in the reviews for this series is the story, mainly because I never really felt enough for me to actually talk about it positively nor negatively. This time around, however, I have to say the story is actually quite good. It fills the game with the feeling of epicness you don't get from the first 2 games. There's actually quite a lot of good jokes and character development. It brings back fan-favorite characters from the original, like Quark's German robot trainer Helga and local handyman Al, and most notably, Dr. Nefarious, a villain so ridiculously insane and funny that he became so popular with the fans that now he's a recurring character in the new games. And really, considering his antics, who can blame Insomniac for doing this?
It is time, Lawrence. Time to unveil the true future of this galaxy. The future I have chosen!
Oh, sorry. Did you say something, sir?
The activation device! Now! Behold the final chapter of this galaxy's destiny. The Age of Robots! You are my robot lover. Make my spark plugs go zap, zap, zap with your love. Lawrence!
Oh, dear, that was your audition for Galactic Idol, wasn't it? My mistake, sir. Dreadfully sorry. By all means, sir. Carry on.
Another upside is that Up Your Arsenal actually fixes a lot of problems I had with the first 2 games. Every weapon in the game is very useful and will come in handy as time goes by. The difficulty isn't as insane as going commando, the checkpoints are spaced closer together, it's much easier to afford things this time around, and there aren't any ridiculous puzzles or scavenger hunts made only to waste the player's time. So if you had any issue with either the original going commando, more than likely this game is taking care of that for you. Something also worthy of note is that there's simply a massive pile of things to do. As well as completing the main game, there's also taking on all the challenges and missions located on each planet, perfecting the Quark stages, finding all the golden bolts and trophies, and that's not even counting the New Game Plus mode and the multiplayer component. So if you like getting 100% in your games, this one's gonna give you a run for your money. And finally, the gameplay, as before, is still as fun as ever. Yes, it's a bit more repetitive than before, but hey, it's still a blast to literally blast the living hell out of huge numbers of enemies with massively powerful weapons and just watch the chaos unfold in front of you. Seriously, it's just a lot of fun and very good anger management. Overall, Ratchet and Clank 3 is a pretty damn good game with great graphics, a fun story, an insane villain, awesome weapons, lots of stuff to do, fun and chaotic gameplay, and problems from the first 2 games finally getting fixed. However, it suffers from less platforming than before, occasionally overwhelming levels and difficulty and enemies, and being more repetitive than previous entries. If you're a fan of blowing up tons of crap with a side order of laughs and great graphics, then I highly recommend you get this game along with the others if you already haven't. I give this game a rating of damn solid, meaning a pretty damn good game with a lot of great aspects and a few awful ones. Now, that would be it for this review. except I just gave it the same rating that I gave Going Commando a few months prior. So, some of you at this point will be wondering which game I think is better. The answer? Depends on your tastes. I consider both games to be equally good, but it really boils down to what you really prefer in your gameplay. If you prefer platforming escapades over blowing things up, I'd figure that Going Commando would appeal to you more. And if you like to blast tons and tons of enemies and don't care all that much for platforming, then just go for Up Your Arsenal. Either way, you probably won't be disappointed. In any case, until we meet again for my next video, this is Father Dougal 9000 saying, have a great day, y'all!